This episode is brought to you by Prime. Obsession is in session, and this summer, Prime Originals have everything you want. Steamy romances, irresistible love stories, and the book-to-screen favorites you've already read twice. Off Campus, Elle, Every Year After, The Love Hypothesis, Sterling Point, and more. Slow burns, second chances, chemistry you can feel through the screen. Your next obsession is waiting. Watch only on Prime.
That's the goal, is for each reader to feel like they're represented on the page. The great writer Rich Peck once said, if you don't see yourself on the page, you'll go looking for yourself in all the wrong places. And I think that's really true, that when a child can identify with the characters on the page, their strengths and their weaknesses and their fears, they feel not alone. And I think that's one reason why we all, adults and kids alike, read, is so that we don't feel alone, so that we feel that there are others who are sharing our travels.
Hey everyone, I'm Bianca Schulze, founder of the Children's Book Review, and this is the Growing Readers podcast. Today's guest is someone whose fingerprints are all over the children's book world, whether you realize it or not. Lin Oliver has written more than 65 books for children, including the New York Times best-selling Hank Zipzer, the World's Greatest Underachiever, Alien Superstar, and the Detective Duck series, all co-written with her longtime creative partner, Henry Winkler. She's the co-founder of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators and served as its executive director for 50 years. Her books are mostly comedies with a big dollop of heart, and she also writes poetry for very young children, including little poems for tiny ears. She's happiest when making kids laugh, and she lives in California. Today, Lin and I are talking about her newest series, The After School Kindness Crew, co-written with Oscar-winning actress, best-selling author, and Mind Up founder, Goldie Hawn. The first book, Pooch on the Loose, introduces 3 fourth graders, Mia, River, and Tony, who come together over a runaway dog and discover that kindness, like comedy, is a skill you can practice. In our conversation, Lin shares how this partnership with Goldie came to be, why humor is her gateway into a child's heart, how she weaves brain breaks into the story, and what 50 years in the children's book community have taught her about kindness as a creative practice. As a longtime SCBWI member myself, I'll admit getting to thank Lin in person for what she and Steve Musa built back in 1971 was a real full circle moment for me. So grab a pickle, and you'll get that joke in a minute, and settle in. Before I share my conversation with the wonderful Lin Oliver, here's the book summary for Pooch on the Loose, the first book in the After School Kindness Crew. From beloved Academy Award-winning Hollywood star Goldie Hawn and New York Times best-selling author Lin Oliver comes an inspiring series about friendship, community, and the power of kindness, encouraging readers to take breaks and deep breaths as they read along. When classmates Tony, Mia, and River find themselves together in Miss Gold's classroom, a friendship quickly forms and leads them to creating the After School Kindness Crew. Join the trio as they bring joy to those around them with laughs, adventures, and brain breaks along the way. The first book in the series introduces the origins of the After School Kindness Crew, starting with a surprise us day in their 4th grade class, which leads to more surprises than anyone expects. From an escaped snake to a rowdy dog let loose from his cage to disguises slipped on to save the day, the hijinks and humor continue from start to finish. Read along to get to know the crew and learn how a sweet dog in need of adoption helps bring them all together. Hi, Lin. Welcome to the Growing Readers podcast.
Hi, Bianca. It's very nice to be here with you.
Such a pleasure. I'm a fan of yours quietly from the distance since I was a wee little kid watching television. So this is super fun for me.
Right. I've been at this quite a while.
Well, I thought just for some fun, we'll do some warm-up rapid fire questions. So when I ask the question, it's just the first response that pops into your mind. Is that okay?
That's absolutely fine. It sounds like fun.
Okay. Well, you've written books, produced television, and co-built the largest children's writing organization in the world. What has been the hardest job of the three?
I think the hardest job of the three is doing the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, because you're dealing with 30,000 people. And when you deal with 30,000 people, there's a lot of personalities involved.
All right. Harry and the Hendersons or Hank Zipzer, which one gets more questions at dinner parties?
Well, Hank Zipzer gets more questions because people are curious not only about the book, but about working with Henry Winkler. And, he's such an icon that everybody wants to know about that.
Comedy or heart? Which comes first when you sit down to start a new story?
Well, I hope that the heart is always with me, so I don't have to summons it. The comedy I have to call in and summons, and it's very important to me. So I've tried to do serious things, and they come out funny.
I love it.
It's very frustrating.
Well, since you mentioned Henry Winkler, I have to say Henry Winkler or Goldie Hawn, whose laugh is more contagious in a writing meeting?
Well, for the moment, it's Henry, because I've written 37 books with him. So his laugh is sort of programmed into my head. Goldie is a newer experience, but she's got a wonderful, contagious, effervescent laugh.
I love it. All right, well, let's go into the longer answers about you now, Lin. So you've written over 65 children's books. And I like to ask this question of everybody. To be a writer, they say you should be a reader first. So was there a pivotal moment in your life that you considered yourself a reader?
That I consider myself a reader? I have no recollection of a time when I didn't want to be a writer and I wasn't a reader. I was, it was very lucky for me. Some people have to sort of find their vocation. And for me, it was handed to me. I was a reader from the very beginning. My mother was a reader, and my mother had my sister and me memorize poetry, which I think was very interesting. I can still recite The Owl and the Pussycat and probably 50 poems that she had me memorize. And I think that's having language become sort of an integral part of your personality is really crucial to being a writer.
Yeah. Well, for over 50 years, you've been one of the most dedicated champions of children's literature, both as an author and as the co-founder and longtime executive director of SCBWI. So what keeps fueling that passion after all this time?
Well, that's a wonderful question. There are multiple answers. One of the reasons for the passion is knowing who the people are who create children's books and knowing them and becoming friends with them. So since the very beginning, when I started the organization, I've been great friends with Judy Blume and Lois Lowry and Jane Yolen and Richard Peck. And this is an extraordinary group of people who are connected, as you talked about heart before, who are connected to their work from their heart. And I think that's unusual. I'm sure that there are other groups of people who find similar connection, but I think the children's book world is particular.
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned before, comedy is really important to you, and so much of your work, from Hank Zipzer to Alien Superstar to Detective Duck, has comedy at its core. So talk to me about why you love using humor as a through line in your stories.
Oh, well, humor for me is a gateway to the story and a gateway to children's interest. A lot of what I've written is unusual because it goes for both boys and girls, I think. And usually it's middle grade or early middle grade fiction. And I think to try and get those 8, 9, 10-year-old boys to get their interest in reading and sustain it, you have to have certain tools. And humor is one of them. Or fright. You look at R.L. Stine and he scares you and you're interested. And you look at my books and they amuse you and you're interested. So it's a gateway. One time I was speaking to a mother at one of the presentations I was doing, and she said, the greatest feeling in the world is to walk down the hall after she's put her son to bed and he's reading, and to hear him laughing through the door. And I thought, that's a gift that I've been given for people to tell me stories like that. Because I think if you start with humor, hopefully there's subtext of plot and storyline and heart and values there. But if you start with the humor, you've got the kids.
Yeah. And as a mom, I thought to myself, how wonderful is it that the last thing somebody does before they go to sleep at night is to laugh? I mean, that's beautiful.
Well, that was one of the stories that has stayed with me. And I think of it often. I think of it when I'm writing, because if you can hook their interest and their concern with humor, then they're with you, and you can explore other themes together.
Just in case there's anybody listening that isn't familiar with Goldie Hawn, Goldie Hawn is an Oscar-winning actress, a best-selling author, and the founder of a global children's mental health program called Mind Up. And that's, for you, Lin, a really remarkable co-author to bring into the kidlit world. So how did this partnership come about for creating the After School Kindness Crew series? And what surprised you most about working with her?
Well, when Goldie first called, she was actually calling because she wanted to explore writers to work with, and was talking to me as someone who knows most of the writers, the children's book writers in the world. And then as we spoke, we kind of fell in love on the phone. The only other co-author I've had is Henry Winkler, and I chose to do those books because he's an extraordinary person. And I chose to work with Goldie. When after we spoke, she said, I want you to do these books. And I said, I'm really interested in Mind Up. I think the themes, particularly today, the theme of kindness and self-awareness and self-regulation are skills that I think kids aren't necessarily seeing modeled in public life. And so I became sort of a passionate supporter of Mind Up and of what she's trying to achieve, which is joy and happiness and kindness. And so that was how we met. I have, over the years, been approached by many celebrities to co-author books with them because the books with Henry Winkler have done so well. And I always say no, because I'm not doing this for the celebrity part of it, but I was so motivated by her truly genuine concern about kids' mental health, and looking at this moment in history and thinking there's nothing more necessary than that. So that was how our partnership was formed.
Yeah.
You may have had a second part of that question.
Yeah. Like, what was the most sort of surprising thing about working with her for you?
She, in her acting career, she's done a lot of comedy. But this is a very serious concern. She approaches it with a light touch, but the depth of her concern about how children are faring these days was a surprise to me, and a pleasant surprise. And it's the reason that I wanted to work with her and do these books, because I think the message that they're sending out, not that the message comes first and is intentional. The first thing is hopefully they're good books and entertaining stories. But underneath it all is this message of what kindness can do for you as a person and can do for the world in general. And that, to me, is essential at this particular moment.
Well, let's talk about the three main characters. We've got Tony, Mia, and River, and each one feels really distinct to me and believable from the moment they're introduced. So I want to start with Mia, who has this wonderful comfort in her own skin. She loves snakes, and she's got this beautiful emotional capacity, even for people who aren't her favorites. So with Mia, is there anything besides what I just described about her that you would want readers to know?
Well, yes. Well, so what was essential to me in starting these books for me start with character. So in developing the character of these three kids, I wanted each of them to be distinct, and I wanted each of them to be kind of outlier kids. You know, I like to write about the kids who may not be noticed or may be noticed for being unusual, and that can be a struggle. And the kids are in fourth grade. You know, that's sort of the age when you want to be like your peers. And all three kids are kids who are not like their peers. So Mia is someone is a kid who's interested in intellectual achievement. She loves science. She loves circuit boards. She loves robots. She loves information. She loves making charts and graphs. And so, and she's newly come to the school. She's Armenian. Her name is Mia Terzian, and her background is Armenian. And her mother, she's being raised by a single parent. Her mother is a physician's assistant, a medical professional. So I wanted to really portray working class kids whose parents are working at regular jobs. Tony, we'll get to him in a minute, but Tony's parents own the dry cleaner, so I wanted to get away from lawyers and doctors and sort of more elite professions and work with kids whose parents are like all the rest of us, working people. And so Mia is unusual. And I would imagine a challenge to raise if she had another parent, but she has a mother who understands her and supports her. She has an inability to be like everybody else. She's distinctly herself and only comfortable in her own skin.
Well, let's talk about River next. So I love that River enters the story wearing tap shoes, and he's just pure contagious joy. So where did you sort of pull his spirit from? Like, what informed you on how to write this character whose enthusiasm just lifts up everybody around him?
Yeah, River is a theater kid. And all of us who are around children, you said you have children, you spot the theater kids. They're the ones who are probably outliers with a lot of the kids in the class. But when they find their group, when they find the group that loves to perform and sing and dance and be on stage and appreciate the arts, they become ensconced in that group. And that's who River is. He's so full of joy and the need and the love to perform and to love the arts. And so he's just a bundle of enthusiasm. And how great for him to find acceptance and not be an unusual kid. Those of us who are around kids a lot, you see those theater kids usually around middle school or high school find their group, and they go to play rehearsals and they have a group of friends where before that they may have been on the outside. But River has found his group in Mia and Tony early on. So that makes his life joy, and not one of exclusion, but one of inclusion.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Tony now. So Tony's relationship with his brothers immediately made me think of the Farley brothers from Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing. I loved those books as a kid, and I was so delighted when your book itself gives that title a nod. So was that a conscious homage, or did the connection just reveal itself organically for you?
Well, Judy Blume is a goddess to me. So I mean, she's not only a person who can be inside a kid's body and write their feelings, but she's funny. She's a really funny writer. And so having an annoying younger brother, Fudge, to me, that's an archetypal theme. If you talk to most kids, they love their family, but the little brother or sister is an annoyance. They want to come with them. They want to model them. They want to play with their friends, and they're 4 or 5 years old. So they're by definition annoying.
Yeah.
And so that's what Zozo, Lorenzo, Tony's little brother is. Tony is, of the 3 kids, is sort of the coolest. He's a good athlete. He's okay in school, but school is not, he's someone who's going to find his passion probably not on the regular academic route. And he loves art. And I purposely made him interested in artists' lives so that he's motivated by learning about artists who live on the edge of society as well. So even though he's very handsome and athletic and looks to be like the regular kid, he has this passion for drawing art and also for learning about artists, which makes him unusual.
I love that this has the 3 main characters, because while there's something relatable that I'm sure each reader can connect with each of the characters, I feel like it just provides this opportunity for even more readers to find themselves in the story. So on that note of kind of having these 3 main protagonists, what's the key for you to making the dynamic feel like a real friendship between them all, rather than just 3 kids thrown together?
Well, Friendship, I'm so happy you asked that question, because one of the enduring themes that I like to write about is friendship. Because I think for kids, their friends are the equivalent for us as adults of romance. When as adults, we fall in love or we're interested in romance, or in young adult literature, they're interested in romantic relationships. But I think when you're 9 or 10 or 11 years old, the most crucial thing for you is your friends. And what I tried to write about in the After School Kindness Crew is friends who love each other no matter what. So they're unusual kids, and their bond is because they're all unusual, and they see that in each other. They see that they're each unique, and they care about each other because of their unique personalities, not in spite of. And so to me, those are the dream relationships, where you're seen as who you are, and where you're accepted and loved as who you are, without trying to turn into someone else or turn into what might be a more usual role model. These kids are all unique, and they love each other because of their uniqueness.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think it's also when you see a difference, but then you also accept and respect that difference and that uniqueness. And I feel like that's what really comes across with these characters.
Thank you. I hope so. Respect and admire. Mia is a strange girl. If you say the word tornado, she'll tell you how fast tornadoes spin. She's someone who loves information, and her friends, the two friends, appreciate that in her. It's not just they tolerate it, they appreciate exactly. And if you meet a kid like that, a 10-year-old kid like that, you're going to think this is a very unusual person. And you have two choices. You can reject them because they're weird, or you can love them because they're weird.
Yes.
And so each of these kids follows their innate personality and gets love back for it, which is really the goal in creating the three characters together for me.
Well, let's talk about Brianna Chambers' illustrations, because I think they really bring such a wonderful energy, but it's just so clear and distinct and expressive. And I think it shows humor and heart. So what was it like for you to see your characters come to life visually for the first time?
That was very thrilling. We were given choices of illustrators. And when we saw hers, they just popped out. It's very hard, I think, to have illustration that has humor and heart like the books have. And I think she managed that really, really well. So I love the lightness, the light touch, and also the contemporary touch that she brings to it.
There's a moment, I think it happens around page 29, where Mia feels bad for a student in their class. His name is Lyle, even though he's being pretty awful. And I'm going to quote from the book, because he was still a person with feelings. And I think that's such a quietly powerful line. So how important was it to you that kindness in this book isn't just easy kindness? Because I feel like sometimes kindness can be just displayed as being like helpful or polite or smile. But I think that moment, even though Lyle's being kind of, not so great, like a little bit awful, she still feels bad for him because he's a person with feelings.
I'm so glad you noticed that. That's actually, I don't want to be a spoiler and give away the end of the book, but the very last chapter of the book emphasizes that also, that unkind people are frequently unkind for a reason, that they feel insecure or they feel challenged by people. And so if you understand that, it makes it possible to be kind to them, to see that their attitude is coming from insecurity rather than just meanness. And I think that's what Mia is able to see, that he is sort of the class bully. He doesn't have anything good to say about anyone else, but way down deep, he's someone who also deserves to be loved and accepted. And that if you can do that, then you can mitigate the unkind behavior with kindness.
Yeah. Yeah. I also like, though, even though the majority of us walk through the world doing our best to be kind, we all have moments where we probably come across like a Lyle, even though we're not intending to do so. So I also feel like Lyle's character can help readers to reflect like, oh, I might have been a Lyle once before, and, and also learn from it from that side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We're complex human beings. And so we have all the feelings, and so it's unrealistic to think that you're going to be kind 24/7. So it helps to understand your own shortcomings or your own impatience. And that's one of the areas that Mind Up explores very well is how to look at your own behavior and take a break from your own behavior and sort of regulate that there are choices in life, and you have the choice to be kind or to be unkind, and you have the choice to be involved or uninvolved. And if you understand your own psychology and your own neurology, your own brain function, you can regulate your own behavior. And that, I think, is a really powerful message that these books send out to kids, that it's not you don't have to react in an angry way. You have a choice. And if you take the time and the introspection to look at that, you might make a better choice.
Yeah. Well, Goldie's Mind Up program has reached over 7 million children in 48 countries, which is incredible, helping kids build that emotional resilience and manage stress. And what I love is in this book, that philosophy takes the form of brain breaks, which are the guided breathing exercises. And you've woven them directly into the narrative. I mean, I don't really know how you pulled it off so beautifully with, we talk a lot in children's book writing, like often there's that, like you said before, an underlying message or theme, but it isn't the driver of the story. And so something that, as a writer, what went into integrating those moments in a way that feels organic rather than instructional? I mean, I thought it was so clever how you pulled it off.
Well, that was a light bulb moment when we realized that we could include the brain break not only in the storyline, but in the storyline for the kid at home. But when you're reading, there are two stories going on. One is the story in the book, and the other is the story of the reader who is interacting with the book. So we decided to see if we could do that. And so there are, in each of the books, because I've written some of the series already, there are two moments when the kids are given an opportunity to take a brain break, which is, reading is a new experience for kids. These the readers of this are going to be in the third grade, fourth grade, maybe as high as fifth grade, but it's still a new experience. Well, I remember one time I was doing a school visit, and I was talking to the kids about reading, and one of the boys in the class said to me, "I don't like reading." And I said, "But, it's really kind of like talking on the phone or talking with your friends. So, well, why don't you like it? It's so interesting." And he said, "It makes my head hurt." And I thought, well, it probably does. It's a new experience. You're still decoding and learning how to draw inferences from the text. And it probably does make your head hurt. It's hard and challenging. So to be able to give the kids, not only in the story, but the kids at home, a brain break where they can they're authorized to put the book down, to do some breathing, to do some mindful work, so that when they come back to it, they're feeling fresh. We do that as adults, but we don't necessarily assume the kids need it. And they deserve the right to approach these books with relaxation and pleasure.
Yeah, well, I loved it. I mean, I like to go and do yoga and my mindful practices and meditate as I'm going to sleep. So for me, this was such a win.
Right.
Well, you co-founded SCBWI in 1971 alongside Steve Musa, and you gathered Jane Yolen, Judy Blume, Sid Fleischman, and so many others who just wanted a community of kindred spirits. And so now, 50 plus years later, you're writing a series literally about kids who form a kindness club. And I'm wondering if you kind of see any parallels there.
My friends tell me that I'm the organizer of groups. I'm a one-person community center. Anything that I do, for some reason, suddenly there's a group around it. It's what I like to do, is sort of bring people together. And I love being around people. I'm a real extrovert, and not in the sense of sort of showing off or talking a lot or performing, because I don't do that. I love having people around and bringing people together. So the SCBWI was an accident. Steve and I did it because we had been hired to write a reading program. It was going to be a national reading program. And we were each supposed to write 110 short stories and 7 novels that would comprise a K through 6 reading program. And we realized that that was a very important task, and that neither of us, I was 22 years old, I had been a comedy writer for television, that neither of us really understood the field. So that's why we formed the group. And over the course of those 50 years, I basically think I got to witness the golden age, the second golden age of children's books. And to have all those people as friends and colleagues and learn from them was the joy of a lifetime. Still is. I still work with the SCBWI and do the social action and charitable work in terms of book distribution, book equity, book bans, freedom to read. So I still work with the organization a great deal. But what a privilege it was to be around those people. You know, writing for children, it's a special breed. I don't know what it is, but it's marked by kindness. In all those years, with all those hundreds and hundreds of world famous, world renowned writers, I don't think I ever met anyone who wasn't kind. I think when you involve yourself with kids and when you devote your life to trying to understand the emotions and the mentality of kids, it turns you into a very special kind of person. And so I feel so lucky to have done that with the organization. And that hopefully now that's incorporated into my personality and into my books, so that it brings a special sort of awareness to kids about story and pleasure and relationships with people.
Well, for kids who might be feeling a little like they're not quite seen at school, what do you hope they take away from meeting the after-school kindness crew?
Well, that is a great question, because that's, for me, in all my work, and especially in this work, that's the essential goal, is for every child to be seen. Once I received a letter from a reader who had read one of the Hank Zipser books, and the letter said, "How do you know me so well?" And it was so touching, because that's the goal, is for each reader to feel like they're represented on the page. The great writer Rich Peck once said, "If you don't see yourself on the page, you'll go looking for yourself in all the wrong places." And I think that's really true, that when a child can identify with the characters on the page, their strengths and their weaknesses and their fears, they feel not alone. And I think that's one reason why we all, adults and kids, read, is so that we don't feel alone, so that we feel that there are others who are sharing our travels. Don't you think that?
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, that's a motivation in reading, is to feel surrounded by characters who feel the same things that I feel.
Yes. And the wonderful thing I think about children's literature is that it almost always carries that message of hope at the end. When you see yourself and you see somebody maybe experiencing the same challenges, and it may not be easy how they get to the other side, but you see them get to the other side. And hopefully that helps readers experiencing challenges know that they too can get to the other side.
I think that's what makes children's literature different from adult literature, is that you don't have to have a happy ending, but you have to have a hopeful ending. And that there's a difference there. All the threads of the story and the characters need to be tied up in a neat bow at the end, but you need to offer children hope. Otherwise, I think you're doing a disservice to them. It's a tough world out there today for a 9-year-old. There's a lot going on and a lot of stress. And so if the book can give them a model of a character who deals with stress in a resilient way, and in the end, that there's a hopeful conclusion, I think the book has done a huge service for kids.
Pooch on the Loose is the first book in the After School Kindness Crew series, but you mentioned that you're already working on more stories. So are you able to give us any hints as to what Tony, Mia, and River are already cooking up for their next act of kindness?
Well, yeah, I've written the second book. It's called Slam Dunk Day. It's the school forms a basketball team, and the 3 kids sign up for it. And along the way, meet a man in the neighborhood named Hugo Beatler, who is a former NBA player, but has sort of turned bitter. And they exercise their kindness skills, not only for the basketball team, but for integrating him back into the community. It's a real great buzzer beater of a story at the end, And so the theme is basketball. And I've just finished the third book, which is about the community television station is sponsoring a talent show. And our kids enter, and there are all sorts of difficulties, hijinks, comedy involved in them entering the community talent show. So we're 3 books into it, and I'm just starting to work on the 4th book. And it's such a pleasure because the stories are active and fun. And the publishing company has attached a little slogan to the books where they say, "Where kindness meets chaos." And I think that's a great description because it's important to me for the books to be funny and to have a physical aspect to them, because I think for the age of our readers, they're very much into physical comedy. So each of the books has that as at its core, so you can have a great laugh along with it. So you never want to feel like you're being preached to or instructed. And so each of those, the basketball game and the talent show, provide great opportunities for physical comedy.
Amazing. I was just sitting here thinking how much my child self would have loved being in the TV talent show.
I know. And of course, they're competing against some of the characters in the community. One thing that I really wanted to do is create a world that these kids live in. So I actually drew a map in my writing process of Vane Street, Sycamore Street, and what shops were there and who ran the shops and who attended the shops, so that it's set in Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, everyone thinks of Los Angeles as sort of glamorous, but there are lots of working communities where on your walk to school, you pass by the dry cleaner and a little mini market and a car wash. And so it's sort of an urban neighborhood. And that was important to me to have that, because I think a lot of kids live in that. It's where you know the people who run the stores. I remember when I was a child and I walked home from school, I would stop in and buy, for some reason I like pickles, and I would buy a pickle every day in the little mini mart. It was a big treat. So I wanted that kind of world where kids are kind of free to move around their neighborhood and to know the adults who live and work there.
It definitely comes across, and I just have to say, I do love a good pickle.
All the other kids were getting candy bars, and I was getting a pickle. So I don't know what that was about, but I still love pickles.
I love it. Well, Lin, if listeners were to take away just one thing from our conversation today, what would you want it to be?
Well, I would want it to be everything, first of all, because this has been a great conversation. But I guess the most important thing is that these are books that demonstrate acts of kindness. And I would want the listeners to encourage kids not only to read the books, but to think about the acts of kindness in their life and how they can turn situations into something that extends good into the world, that we live in a world that is sorely in need of good people performing good acts. And I would hope that these books are a contribution to that.
Yeah.
And that readers acknowledge that.
Well, I'm just going to say a big thank you for bringing Tony, Mia, and River into the world, and from reminding all of us, young readers and grown ones alike, that kindness isn't always easy, but it's always worth it.
Yes. I'm going to recruit you for the 4th book.
Sold. Sign me up. I also want to take a moment to say something that feels personal to me. And as a member of SCBWI, I just know firsthand what you and Steve Musa built from that small gathering in 1971 means to so many writers at every stage of their journey. And I credit SCBWI with giving me a real boost when I needed it most. And I recommend it to every writer I meet, the community, the resources, the sense of belonging. And that's your legacy. And that's so incredible.
Well, thank you. I believe that it is a legacy. And I feel privileged to have done it. I did that. We did that, Steve and I, while we both had other jobs. I was producing television shows, but we never let that go because it was that thread of kindness in our lives that meant so much. Those friendships with people who are in the children's writing community are really special. That's all I can say. This is not, and all credit to lawyers and doctors and insurance salespeople and all that who go to their own conventions. But when you go to conferences and conventions of people who write for children, you just feel like you've dropped into heaven. It's such a creative world, and people always think children's writers they're going to walk around in capes wearing elf shoes. It's not that at all, but it is a remarkable community of kindness. And so it was a great privilege to do that. And it makes me happy to hear you say that. I love talking to people who are or have been members and see that it's done a world of good for them. Helping people realize their creative dreams is a gift.
Yeah. Well, I think now to see you channel that same spirit of community and kindness into the After School Kindness crew alongside Goldie Hawn. I mean, what a gift to give this to kids too. And I cannot wait to see where Tony, Mia, and River go next. So, Lin, this conversation has been a joy and an honor for me. So thank you so much for being on the Growing Readers podcast today.
Thank you, Bianca. It's been a pleasure, and hello and much love to all of your listeners.
Thank you so much for joining us on this quest for growing readers. What a gift to spend time with someone who has helped shape so much of the children's book landscape we all love, and who is still, all these years and 65 plus books later, writing with so much joy. If today's conversation made you want to meet Tony, Mia, and River for yourself, Pooch on the Loose, the first book in the After School Kindness Crew series by Lin Oliver and Goldie Hawn, is available now. You'll find a link to order your copy in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, the kindest thing you can do is share it with a friend, leave a rating or review wherever you listen, and follow the Growing Readers podcast so you never miss what's next. Until next time, keep reading, keep laughing, and remember Lin's words, kindness is a choice. I'm Bianca Schulze, and I'll see you on the next episode. The Growing Readers podcast is a production of the Children's Book Review. For more book recommendations like the After School Kindness Crew series by Lin Oliver and Goldie Hawn, I hope you'll visit us at thechildrensbookreview.com